Holly, and Madeline. Come on, everybody. Yeah. My heart is overwhelmed. Yeah. Gosh, I love this place. And I love you people. It is so good to be home. Today we're gonna give you a little presentation. It's not gonna be one of those boring pictures with Pat's iPhone pictures. I brought a real photographer to Africa with me, and we have a real screen to show the real pictures. So, but I just wanted to start by thanking my wife, Celine, Pastor Bob, Pastor John, and Pastor Shell, the team, for making it possible for me to be able to go. I've got some prophecies that I went over. Whether I get to any of them, I don't know. But one of the things that continue to be said is that this church is being called as a rising of apostolic center. And unless the team comes together, unless the apostle and the prophet and the evangelist and the pastor and the teacher are able to come together and work together, then no individual is going to be able to go out and do such things. And my good friend Nelson said, Pat, I got good news and I got bad news for you. The good news is everything worked just great while you were gone. The bad news is everything worked great while you were gone. To me, that's all good. And I give honor and glory to the Lord for it, and I want to thank this incredible team for their work. So please put your hands together for them. Yes, thank you. I got a chance to watch Facebook Live, and I got the chance to see Celine preach and Jonathan preach, and then when Bob was going to preach, all of a sudden there was no feed. Was there something missing there? No, I got a chance to hear it though, and these are amazing men and women. They had a great word. Bob is a great word. We have to embrace our identity, or else we're not going to accomplish what God's called us. We got to stop believing the other voices and start believing the heavenly voices. And I just want to thank the Lord. I want to shout out to my good friend Jay Wynn is with us today. Pastor Jay Wynn. Woohoo! Thank you. He's living up in the Sacramento Foothill area, and he's down here to be a part of the Gathering of Eagles with Tony Miller and the gang. So we really want to welcome you. It's great to have you, my friend. We love you. We missed you in Tuolumne County. Tuolumne County misses Jay Wynn. Yeah. And I don't want to forget his significantly better half, Diana. Thank you so much for marrying this guy. Yeah. Get him off the streets. Yeah, that's good. Praise God. I also, every place we went, and this was a significantly different kind of an event. And this was my 9th time to Uganda. My first time without Ted Uke being there. But it was very different in many ways, stronger in just about every way. And every place I went, they all said, please extend your gratitude to your house, to the leaders of your house, to the people of your house, for letting you come. And so you know Jackie and Henry Mukisa. And they were our hosts for our first and the third phase. We had a 3-phase tour, if you will. And Jackie was our host the first part. And she was here, of course, for the 50th and just fell in love with you, with Word of Life, with Miwok Village. And so now it's not like Henry and his wife, it's Jackie and her husband. She's the star over there, and we just love Jackie. And so Jackie and Henry, they just want to extend their greetings to everybody. We got, where's Virginia? Is Virginia here? She says, where's Virginia? You tell Mama Virginia. And Joanne Angiano, you rocked her. She loves you. So, but I just want to thank everybody for extending so much grace and love to the people when they came. And so they want to make sure I said hello. James and Julie Cateau were the hosts for our second phase. They work with Amanda Connor. I hope we're going to get James here maybe in 2020. You will love him. He and Julie, and I wish we could get Julie too. She and Celine were cut out of the same bolt of cloth. And just a great lady and a great guy. And And Aloysius and Peace Integi were part of the hosting for the first phase as well. And I'm not sure we're going to get him here. He's got some health issues and visa problems in that sense, but I sure wish we could. These are great folk. So today we're going to have a decent presentation, like I said, and we're going to share a few things during the presentation, and afterwards I want to wrap it up with a few things. But I was so proud of Jeribi Tascoe. Before he comes up, I just want you to know he represented and honored you well. So come on, put your hands together as we welcome Jeribi. Come on up, Jer. Get up here, man.
Thank you.
Get up here.
I just want to say first, before Pastor Pat sits down, that this is an incredible man of God. And you get to know a lot about a person when you travel with a person.
Oh, boy.
And lodge with a person and do laundry next to this person. I mean, I was carrying his laundry and I got to see it all.
I think I carried yours too, didn't I?
Probably.
Yeah.
I think we got our laundry switched up at the same time. That ain't mine. I don't wear those. So, I want to first give honor to the father of this house. When I travel and go to these different places, I've gone to some places with my wife, I don't often go with too much of an expectation, because I just want to go with a clean slate, fresh, kind of a fresh slate to just experience and let it be impressed on me as it's coming. And so I didn't really know what to expect when traveling with Pastor Pat. I mean, I've known Pastor Pat all my life. I've known him, more so as the youth pastor through Holy Ghost workshops and various events, and then, of course, as a senior pastor here. And we've always had a good relationship. And I would say this also as a second generation, third generation in this church, that I've always had honor and respect for Pastor Pat as the pastor. But I haven't really experienced him as a father until this trip. And this trip was a remarkable blending of our hearts and blending of what God has established here in this house, and gave me a completely different perspective into this man and his heart for this people. And so I just want to honor him as the pastor of this house, and I know Pastor Celine is very much a part of that honor. But in particular, this man who gave his life to Christ at the age of 19, didn't have it all figured out, didn't really want to do things a lot of the ways that God was planning and purposing for him. This man that helped hold up our founding shepherd's arms, along with Pastor Celine, along with many other the elders in this house, they helped support her in times where many of us wouldn't have even known, and I just literally came into the knowledge of, where she was suffering in ways that we can't even begin to fathom. But yet he and Pastor Celine, and like I said, the eldership of this house, held her arms up. And now today hold up that vision that God put within her, and are pushing it forward. And are pushing it forward in a way that we never knew what it was going to look like. And so I got to see Pastor Pat out in the field, in his glory, doing what he's been called to do. And it's amazing to see this man in action. So I just want to pay him honor today. If you will please help me honor our pastor, Pastor Pat.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, come on. Come on.
You're burning the clock.
It's okay. The more you clap, the more you take away from his last 15 minutes of the day. So. He now has 13 minutes. Yeah, let's give him a standing ovation. Thank you. I want to also, like Pastor Pat, I have to thank my wife. Thank you, honey. This trip, I wouldn't have been able to go if it weren't for my wife and for her family who came and stayed with us for a month to help with the household and help with our children and keep all of those spinning plates spinning. So I love you, and I thank you, and I appreciate you, and I want to just publicly adore you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I made sure he brought his wedding ring.
Oh, yeah.
We literally stopped at his house on the way to the airport. Get that wedding ring.
Yeah,
Last thing I needed, bring another handsome guy to Africa.
Hilarious.
Without a wedding ring.
So we're going to step out of the way. And I wanted to first say, I know bear with us. This is, to me, this is a little more than a presentation. It's really a testimony. And if you will, go with me in this. It's really a testimony about your faithfulness. It's less about what, let's say, Pastor Pat and I were doing in the field. It's really a testimony of the faithfulness of this house and steadfastness of this house to pray.
Yeah.
And to cover those who are sent in prayer. I may have experienced it differently than others, but I'll say this at the onset, is that we didn't have any traveling issues. We didn't have any illness issues. We didn't have any logistical issues. Everything was, as smooth as... This might have been my first trip, but it seemed like it was smooth sailing all the way through. So thank you for those prayers. And I've already heard from a couple people, and I kind of want to take 5 minutes, if we can, and do something to exemplify how much this is a testimony of your faithfulness. I heard already from Mike Flores, who shared that he had a specific thing that the Lord asked him to pray for, and he prayed for it, and him and I were able to fellowship about it the other night. But I wanted to ask if there is 2 other people that had something that just God dropped on your spirit, and you ended up interceding and praying for, because I believe that we're going to see the testimony and the answer to your prayer in what we're going to share today. So are there 2 people that had something specific that God put on your heart when you were praying for us as we went? Yeah, one? And where's the other one? Can you come up real quick? No, the rest of you were praying? I'm just kidding.
Hey.
I'm just kidding. Was there anybody else? Can you just share what the Lord put on your heart to pray about?
Well, there was 2 things, that there would be healing, and that it would come through these hands, and that the people of Uganda would see the healing happen in Pastor Pat's hand, and that they would believe, and then they would receive healing because of what they saw. And so it was really about healing and changing the hearts of those people.
Amen. One more? Quick. Here she is.
As I was praying, I was just seeing the Lord use you as you came into a place, just bringing this awesome amount of joy. And this spirit of joy would just come upon you guys wherever you went. So
Awesome. Okay, I'm sure there's more. And if you don't want to share it now, you can share it with me at fellowship. But we'd love to hear those confirmations because, 1, it builds our faith, and 2, it builds your faith, and it builds our relationship in what God was accomplishing through this house, because it's truly through this body that God is using us. So we went to Uganda. For those of you that don't know where Uganda is, slide 2. Sorry, I don't have a clicker, so it'll be a lot of back and forth. Uganda is kind of right in the middle of Africa. It's called the Pearl of Africa, and it's right above a very, very large body of water called Lake Victoria. It's a landlocked country, so it's surrounded by, of course, other larger nations. And then as we go in a little deeper, when we landed in Uganda, we landed in the first main city of Entebbe. This is where the airport was. And this was where our first phase of our ministry began. So as we land, we ended up at home base. And home base for us was a place called the Sienna Hotel. And this is the lovely manager of the hotel. Her name is Kansi. And she's, 4 months pregnant? Something like that. So it's a beautiful location, and the hospitality there was much like we're used to here at Word of Life. They were wonderful. They're beautiful people. And then I want to introduce you to the security guard and the host. This guy was intense. We felt very safe once we got past him. And so this is kind of the road coming up to the Sienna Hotel, and right where that gate is in the middle, he would be stationed right there, and he would just emerge out of the shadows. And, he didn't smile at all.
Ever?
At all. Until probably like towards the end of our trip, I had his picture on my phone. And because he didn't smile when I took his photo, he got even fiercer. I grabbed my camera and was like, "Hey, look, I took your photo." And he saw it, and then he sat up and like grinned this huge grin, and like all this joy came over him. And I was like, "Where's my camera when this guy's smiling?" And he was so great. And then this gentleman to your right is Nelson, and he's also one of the kind of the concierge at the hotel. Really wonderful man. And so this is kind of home base. This is where we stayed. And every time we came back here, because we traveled, we'd go 6 hours this way and stay a night or two and then come back, or 2 hours this way and stay a night over there and come back. Every time we came back here, this was kind of like, okay, we're home. Home away from home. So continuing on. All right, so our first assignment was an all-night, what they call an overnight prayer meeting. They start at 11 p.m. and they go till 4 in the morning. They are serious about their prayer. And everybody's bundled up because it's cold for them, but it was really like 71 degrees. It was like, Pastor Pat and I were just like, yeah, this is nice. And they're all shivering with beanies on at 1 in the morning. So this is Pastor Pat firing off his message at 1 in the morning, which was pretty awesome. And they're all very much, they're cold, so they look kind of solemn, but they're just cold. But they were very much a part of what was going on. So I think we have a little clip of Pastor Pat speaking.
The word encourage means almost exactly the same as courage, but with an in front of it. And the word in means to put into action. See, everybody wants heart. Everybody wants tenacity. Everybody wants spirit. Everybody wants to have hope when there's no reason. So how do we bring that courage to reality? It takes the Lord and His body to encourage, to put into operation heart, to put into action tenacity, to put into action spirit and hope. We are to encourage one another. And we're inspiring people.
Amen. So it is, it's quite the balancing act of delivering the word and kind of chopping your phrases up enough to where the interpreter can speak, and you're kind of doing this dance back and forth. So Pastor Pat's really, really good at that, and he wanted to make sure I got some practice. So I got to speak that night as well, and it went well, but it was really cool. I'd love for you to hear them preaching in their native tongue, because everywhere we go, they do speak English, but there's a majority of them that speak their native tongue, or they don't speak English well, so we have to have everything translated. So that was cool. So that's Pastor Pat rocking everybody. It's probably 1:45 a.m. at this point. And then this is myself, Pastor Pat, and Pastor Jennifer. She's the female pastor of this particular church. And she's a pretty incredible woman of God. As soon as we walked in, Pastor Pat goes, "Doesn't she remind you of somebody?" I'm like, yeah, she's just like Pastor Tom Shaw. Like, she was leading them into worship. She was telling the worship team, like, stop it, follow me, go this way. And so she would start, and they would back her up, and then everybody would jump in. They would go into high praise as she was leading them into that. It was really amazing to see. So it was kind of special. And the Spirit of God said something to me that night. He said, I'm letting you see how it was in the beginning with Pastor Tom Shaw. This was before I was born. I was born in 79, but back in, the late 60s and 70s, when Pastor was leading and pioneering a church, that's what this looked like. It was a really special moment.
A really special moment was this guy gets a word of prophecy over her. and he starts reading her mail. He gets this word of knowledge. She literally fell to her knees because he answered in prophecy, he answered a prayer she had prayed 45 minutes earlier, almost word for word. So she just broke down in tears and literally fell to her knees. And so that's how he started his 3 weeks in Africa, by prophesying like that. It was awesome.
At 4 in the morning. God still moves at 4 in the morning. Amen. So, moving along, we had some ministry the next day. This is Pastor Henry and Jackie Mukisa's church. It's called Cornerstone Community Church. And yes, this is their actual building. Most of their buildings they're framed with eucalyptus wood, and they're surrounded and wrapped in steel tin. So when it rains, And this was a different morning. This was later on in our trip, but the morning that I was there, Pastor Pat was ministering at another church. I was there, and it started raining, and you can't hear anything. Service stops for a minute. Everybody just kind of sits back and quietly talks to each other. Then the rain dies down, and then everybody leans back forward, and we resume service. So they also have frequent power outages. So I know everybody here is kind of more accustomed to the power outage situation, but theirs are like, it could happen at a moment's notice. A generator fires up, and they don't skip a beat. The worship team doesn't stop. Nothing stops. They just go, oh, power's out. That clicks on, and what's next, in the service. So it's really neat to see how they've been pretty resilient to a lot of these things. These are two little gals that were ministering that morning at service. And the woman up top, she's an associate pastor.
Pastor Agnes.
Pastor Agnes, yeah. She was really wonderful too. So we had some ministry going on there that morning, and then there was this little gal dancing that kind of touched my heart. I wanted to show you a clip of her. Oh, after this photo. So this was the night before we did a leaders roundtable, and these are various pastors in the Entebbe area coming together for us to have a leadership meeting night. And Pastor Pat led the meeting and did a lot of great Q&A. They asked a lot of really great questions. We're very engaged. And there was opportunity to minister to a few of the men, and we were able to prophesy and pray over a few. It was a really powerful time. And really the kickoff, because one of the goals of Pastor Henry Mukisa, of us coming out, was to have more of these leadership meetings and really inspire the leaders to get them to work better together, to help reconcile differences, encourage them to build the body of Christ. Pastor Pat had some incredible messages for them that were just so on point. And then, of course, that's us with Jackie Mukisa afterwards. Okay, so then the next morning we had worship, and this little gal was dancing away, and I wanted to show her off to you guys. And this is their worship team. Yeah. So she's super cute. I got to take some photos of her and her family. To the left, in the middle is her dad, Victor, and this is Viola, his wife. And together, this is their daughter, Divine. Divine was born premature and extremely weak, extremely thin. She's still a little rail now. But she actually, according to Victor, he says a doctor says she died. And they prayed, and she came back to life. And so she is now a thriving little 7-year-old, dancing away. She mimics all her mom's moves on the stage. And so when I saw her dancing, something in my heart was just like, oh, she's so cute. And then I heard her story. I was like, wow, I want to make sure to share her story. So there's great men and women of God here. And Liz Joan gave a prophetic word to me before leaving. And it was about hearing the heart of the Father and knowing his heartbeat and growing in that. and also being a father to people groups. And this man, Victor, when we met, there was a bond, like a David and Jonathan kind of a bond that happened immediately. And it was, I mean, we barely had talked to each other, but it was like immediately we connected. So we're still connected, and we'll be connected for a while. And so it's really cool to see God do some pretty quick works right when we get out there. Okay, next. So after that day of ministry, we hit the road, and we starting to head north. I just wanted to show you guys a little bit of the landscape here. There's been a lot of development by the Chinese government in Uganda and various other places in Africa. But just to give you an idea of kind of what it's like there, they make a lot of bricks because they build everything with bricks. And so that was like a brick manufacturer. It's pretty awesome. And then to the right is a little bit of the kind of the roads that you're driving on. Keep going. Next. So what's our keyword? This is traffic. And there's kind of no rhyme or reason. Like, even though there's a red light over here, everybody just kind of is like, whatever. It looks clear to me. You're kind of taking your life into your own hand on those motorcycles. I'll tell you a little more about the motorcycles in just a second. But as we were parked, and I'm filming the traffic just to kind of take that in, this guy walks up to the window, and I'm wondering if he's going to, like, nicely dressed and ask me for some money. And he starts preaching. So he's a street preacher. And I asked him to, like, give me your word, man. Give me your message. So I got a clip of him preaching.
God, yeah, repent. The kingdom of God has hand. Is at hand. Turn away from your wicked ways.
Yes.
Turn away from corruption.
Yes.
Turn away from bribery.
Yeah.
Repent, come back to God.
Amen.
These are the days of salvation.
Amen. All right.
Yeah.
Amen. So he was pretty cool. And then he took off to the next car to give them the next word. We drove up to the main city of Kampala. So one of the larger cities in Uganda. It's heavily populated. There are people everywhere. To give you kind of an idea of how many people are in Uganda, the whole state of Uganda is about a third the size of California. And they have 42 million people in that. Where California, all of California is 39 million. So there's a lot of people packed into, let's say, Sacramento to Fresno. Imagine all the people in California within those two cities, and Los Angeles San Francisco up to where we live. So it's packed, and they all have motorcycles, and they all have something they're doing because everybody is walking everywhere at all times. It's pretty wild. So this was the church we went to. This is James Cato's church. This is phase 2 of our trip, where we met up with Pastor Amanda Connor, Pastor Jay Pike, and we joined them for this 3-day conference, leaders conference. It's about 150 leaders from all over mostly from Uganda, I think, but all over the nation of Uganda, and they were joining us. This is Pastor Pat, day 1, and he just led off with a lot of fire, and then Pastor Amanda followed him up, and it was a pretty amazing first day.
It's important to note that this is the building, church building that Tony Miller, and actually led by Amanda, our network is building. And so we've been working with them since 2014, and they made tremendous progress. Look, no dirt floors. They got real concrete, or shall I say, plastered brick walls and so forth. So it sticks out like a palace in the middle of the slum, and it's transforming. The building is just a testimony of the transformation that's going on in the slums of Ntete.
Yeah. Next. Oh.
Look what I threw in.
Hey.
Look, so this is Jeribi preaching.
Day 2, I got to preach. And what else did you stick in there? Okay. He's the pastor. He can do whatever he wants. So this is Pastor Patton. This is Aloysius. In the middle is James Cato and Pastor Amanda. And on the right, of course, is James Cato's wife, Julie. Wonderful people. And these are the people that helped. On the right, Julie and James, they helped pull this conference together. Julie was amazing, so hospitable, so complimentary to James. And then this is Aloysius. This is Pastor Pat's. How long have you known him?
2012, met him at FMCI conference in Dallas. And then we got together in Uganda. And I preached for him every Sunday. The first Sunday that I arrived in Uganda, I always preached for Aloysius.
It's Pastor Amanda with some of the young men that were assisting us.
And Jay.
They have a very interesting custom there. They don't let you carry your bag, so which is a little different for me because I'm pretty safety conscious when I travel, so nobody touches my bag but me. And so when they're going to grab it, I'm like, it's like a tug of war. Like, no, this is my, no. And eventually it's like, if you don't let them carry your bag, it's kind of like you're not letting them having a chance to serve and honor you. So it's like, okay, I'm going to walk right next to you though. Like, I trust you, but as far as I could see you, and it all went well. I'm just being silly. But they were great people. And so here's Pastor Jay. He led off day 2. I ended up preaching after Jay on day 2. So that was a really great experience. And one thing that's kind of funny is there's this song they sing over there, and I won't sing it now. Maybe someday if I'm leading worship, I'll introduce it to everybody. But there's a song that I learned the first night we were there back at Pastor Jennifer's church at the overnight. And it's a beautiful song, and for whatever reason, it's like when Pastor used to sing "He's Sweet, I Know." It just kind of melts your heart, and you kind of just really soften before the Lord. So this particular song really was a melter. So Pastor Pat, right before I'm about to speak, you know how he does? He puts his hands on your shoulders. He starts praying for you, and they start singing this song. Because in my heart, I was like, hey, I think I'll sing this song before I start speaking, because just to set an atmosphere and transition between the prior speaker to my session. And they start singing it. So they start singing it, and I'm like, oh, thank God. And then I'm starting to melt, and then he starts to pray for me, so I'm overwhelmed. So I'm like a slobbering, crying mess, and then I have to go speak. So I was like, stop praying, like easy. So I don't know what happened. It's one of the first times, I've had this only happen one other time at the prison. But being on a ministry assignment like this, to receive kind of a virtue fill-up, if you will, and then you go preach, and then once you're done, that's all gone, and you're kind of spent. It was a very different, new kind of experience. So this was the team, day 2, making it happen, and Julie and Pastor Amanda looking fierce. Pastor James Cateau on the left. This is Peter Cateau, no relation, but Peter was an incredible translator, so he helped to help us convey our messages as clearly as possible. And then this is Famous Amos. He got that nickname from Amanda, but he was our driver. He helped us safely navigate all of that beautiful traffic you saw a minute ago with 0 incident. So he was a really remarkable young man, servant of the Lord. Oh.
Another one. Yeah, Jeribi, just about every time he got a microphone, he would prophesy. And I'm not teasing him. This was awesome. He was doing what he's called to do. And at the end of the week, we had our final Sunday. We all were divvied up and sent to other churches. And Jeribi was assigned to this other church. And so we all came to the church, sent out to the churches. We preached, ministered, come back, having lunch. Lunch is almost done. And it's like, where's Jeribi? And so they call the other pastor, and Jeribi said, well, he's almost done prophesying. He prophesied over everybody in the church. He did a Tom Davis. He started on the left and went to the right. And then after the lunch, Jeribi comes back, right, and we kind of left him some lunch. And James Cateau came over and he said, this conference with 130, 150 leaders, which is, we had 700 the year before, but this was invitation only. It wasn't just open, anybody wanted to come. And he says the content, the impact was the best of all that we've done so far. Then he hesitated. I go, but, and he said, but the prophecies were incredibly accurate. You guys are reading people's mails. And so Jeribi did this also at, for that church you prophesied or preached at the last Sunday too, didn't you? Yes. With Duncan. Yes. Pastor Duncan started on the left and went to the right. I'm very proud of him. It was awesome.
Praise God. Well, so they set it up because, you know, everybody's pastor this or bishop that or apostle this, and I'm Jeribi. And I don't care about titles, honestly. If you know me well, I don't aspire to have all that stuff. I just want to do the work. That's what I care about. So Pastor Pat and James Cateau and a couple others kept telling ministries that I was being sent to, he's a prophet. So, of course, as soon as I show up, they're like, hey, you're going to prophesy? And I'm like, whatever you want. And they go, great. Preach for an hour and then prophesy over the people. And I'm like, okay, do you have some people you'd like me to minister to? They're like, them. I'm like, okay. So that was cool. And then this day where I was sent to this other church and Pastor Pat was sent to church, we actually got sent to the wrong churches. He was supposed to go to the church that I ended up at and vice versa. And what's funny is the night before I was preparing a word, and the Lord gave me something out of Exodus 15 about the children of Israel and coming up out of bondage, and God really wanting to minister a word of deliverance to that house. And that's a very specific, it was specific for the church that I was going to go to, but I got sent not to the church I was supposed to go to the other church, and it was actually the word that they were supposed to get. So God knew right what he was doing. He gave me a word for the church that I wasn't supposed to go to.
Yeah, and of course, Pastor James tells Pastor, I think it was Pastor Fred, whatever,
Yes, yeah.
says, hey, I'm going to send this young man to you, man. He prophesies over anything that moves. And then I showed up. So he says, okay, yeah, you get to preach till it's noon, preach for an hour, and then start prophesying. And I'm kind of going, oh, okay, I can do that, you know. So I didn't prophesy over everything that moved, but I did prophesy over about 6 or 8 people. But it was really cool to see people stepping into what God's called them to do.
Amen.
We've been called to be a prophet. We've tasted of his prophetic gift here, and to watch him just, let out the reins and let it go. It was awesome. It was really fun. Boda break.
Yes. So, these are the bodas. There's the bungalow boda.
Boda means it's the nickname for all these motorcycles, which are millions there.
There's millions. Literally millions. Everybody's on them. You'll see more photos like this. This was arts and crafts boda. They had all sorts of cardboard and paperwork. This is safe boda, which is kind of like, are you sure you should name yourself Safe Boda?
Oxymoron.
Right.
Safe Boda.
This is Glass Boda. Yes, he's carrying 2 panes of glass, but he has gloves, so that's good.
It's safe, of course.
And the guy better be easy on the brakes. Here's Laundry Boda. It had just rained, by the way. This guy who came trucking down the street. And for those of you who've never ridden a motorcycle, it's very hard to control a motorcycle at slow speeds. Slow speeds is where most people have crashes because they're very hard to balance. And yet he was doing like 10 miles an hour on a muddy, slippery road, perfectly balanced, no stress. And he even gave us a look and then kept going. It's pretty funny. This is Business Boda. He had all of his copies and Kinko's presentations ready to roll. And then I think the last one, we have Rescue Boda. So just in case Safe Boda is not safe and he happens to run into Business Boda, we've got Rescue Boda ready to go.
They literally have an entire floor of the hospital designated for Boda accidents.
Oh, and the best of all, Uber is in Uganda. Now, I don't know if they're officially sanctioned by the Uber of America, but they did a pretty good job mocking that up on their helmets there. So that was hilarious. We were joking around. We're like, oh, wouldn't that be funny if there was a Uber Boda? Rides right by us. So. All right, so we had finished up with the conference. We came back to home base. As you guys saw earlier, we got a half day to kind of take a break and catch our breath, and then we ended up over at Divine Royal School, and this is Pastor Henry and Jackie Mukisa's school for the young kids. So we got there. It was raining and storming, but there was plenty of liveliness going on inside the classrooms. So I just want to share a couple photos of the kids. This was Pastor Pat out front, and this was their security guard. I actually got him to laugh, so that was cool. He had a pretty intense look too, so just Didn't want to make everybody that's a security guard in Africa look like they're that menacing. These are the kids. They've got all sorts of different grades. I believe they had from like first grade to sixth grade at these schools. Really cute kids. Got some close-ups of them just hamming it up for the camera.
248 students.
Yeah, they all wear uniforms and they all greeted us. They all stand up and say, "Hello, our visitors. Welcome to our classroom." And then they have something else to say. And they're really cute.
Welcome, visitors.
Yeah, that was great. There was multiple classrooms that sang songs to us. That one was kind of the funniest. And I know it's hard to understand their English, but they're basically singing to the, you heard Yankee Doodle in there, like the kind of the melody. They're saying, "I wrote a letter to my father, and on the way I dropped it. A policeman found it, and then he put it in his pocket." And so then they're saying, "Pocket, pocket," and they're all getting into pocket. So, which is funny because pocket is like a groove term, like in music. It's just interesting. So then, after we visited with the kids, we got to take a little field trip, a rainy, muddy, mudsliding field trip up to where their new school is going to be, and this was kind of the terrain. Pastor Pat, he was doing great. There was one spot, and when you take photos and you turn around and you catch someone doing something, you're like, "Yeah, I'm so glad I just took that photo." This was the only moment. Pastor Pat is very precise. He's a great presenter. You very rarely catch him off guard. I mean, even when we're getting our laundry mixed up, he's always like really sharp. And I turned around and he went to take a step and he like hit this slip and was like, "Whoa!" And I clicked and I was like, "I'm so glad I got that photo." So he didn't fall, thank God. And there was a goat that was witnessing the whole thing. And so I wanted to take his photo too. Yeah, that was corny, I know. So here's the school they're building. And like I said, they do kind of this brick foundation and then they shove these eucalyptus trees down into the ground, and then they start to frame on top of it. And of course, they got their roof up. And I got a couple close-up shots of the carpenter doing his thing where he's cutting with a saw, and he's measuring while standing in the window.
Steel-toed shoes.
Yeah, with his steel-toed boots. Very OSHA-friendly here. And putting in nails. And now these nails, I mean, these nails they're so long. They're like, you would use these types of nails to like pitch a tent, but they're using these and they're putting one nail, just one. Most of the time you frame a window, there's probably at least 60 nails that go into framing a window in America. There's like one nail to hold this, one nail to hold that, one nail here, one nail there. And I'm like, okay, cool. He's standing on it. It must be solid. So, and there's buildings like that all over the place. So pretty cool. The guy on the right, he was our kind of quasi-guide. He helped us get back from the school in a not so muddy terrain, not so muddy fashion, back to where we had started out. And then as we got back, this guy was standing in the doorway of this girl's shop. So she was probably working, he was probably hitting on her, and I just really liked his jacket, so I was like, "Hey, can you stop for a photo?" And he said, "Yeah." And then I didn't want her to feel left out. But these are beautiful people in Uganda. They're really pleasant, very friendly, and so I just wanted to kind of share some of the people there. All right, so the next kind of mission, this was kind of phase 2.5. This was with Entebbe leaders, again, another leadership group, all pastors in the Entebbe area. We were met with them, a couple of them from the last meeting. But this is all done at Word of Life Church in Uganda, which was pretty cool. So thought I'd take a photo of that. Oh, by the way, look at their Sunday services. They don't have announcements. They just have one list of everything that's going on for the week. So you just take a picture of it with your camera phone. And that's what's happening on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And I think that says general cleaning at 8 a.m. on Saturday. So they have work crew. Yeah, clean up and work crew. So this went really great. I have to applaud Pastor Pat. He gave a word about submission to these leaders. And he's preached it here before, and just to kind of encapsulate it in a minute, in Uganda, the culture, it's very macho, let's say. It's very much, I'm the leader, God established me as a leader, and everybody answers to me in my church. That's how it works. That's how it goes. It's very much like that in America too. But when you give a word of submission, they think the way they interpret it is, the word submission means you're a pastor, but then you have to lay down on the floor under the feet of another pastor. Like that's how they think of it. So to them, it's kind of like, how does that work? Because I'm meant to be this strong leader, but how am I supposed to lay down at the feet of another person? So Pastor Pat broke it down and said, listen, submission, we know what mission means, but sub means to come under. So as leaders, what you're meant to do is come under the mission of another pastor. And it was like, I mean, shackles hit the floor, like mindsets were changing immediately. They were like, they all sat back and went, whoa, because their perception just completely got changed. And now when you look at it from the mindset of, oh, submission is me, yes, aligning with another leader, but I'm coming under to support their mission. That's what submit means. And so they took that to heart. And I mean, their Bishop Ivan got up a minute later and was like, wow, Pastor Pat, and he just had to take a minute and literally kind of tell what Pastor Pat just said. It was a very profound moment. And so that was a really cool hallmark of this meeting here. There's Pastor Pat at his finest, working with this Pastor Henry Kisa, and that was Bishop in the middle.
Joseph, I think.
Joseph. And this is myself, Bishop Ivan, and Pastor Elijah. And Pastor Elijah and I connected too. If you can go back one second. This was, again, that word I got from Liz Jones about being a father. When I talked to Elijah, he's probably 6 years younger than me, and he pastors a church. And him and I got to talking for a minute, and we were just fellowshipping, and I was sharing a couple things with him. And he said, you know what, everything you've just shared is things I've been praying about and I need personally, and I need for my church. So I would love for you to be like a father figure to me and help mentor me. And so like as soon as he started saying that, that word came to my heart about being a father to people groups. And so it was amazing to see how fast God was answering and confirming the words that were going forth. So Elijah and I are in contact to this day. We've been talking, and we'll see where that goes. And this is the new mayor of Entebbe, Pastor Pat. This is after meeting with the mayor. The mayor is on the left in the plaid shirt. He invited Pastor Pat to come sit in his seat, which is a really remarkable gesture. And then we took a picture outside of the mayor's office. And then it's hard to explain all of the significance of this meeting. I'm sure more of this will come to light as time goes on. But the mayor in the middle, Mayor Ronnie, he decided to take Pastor Pat on a quick little hiatus over to show him where the king's, I don't know, what was it called? What would we call that?
Where he brought his tent, basically. The king, Uganda is a kingdom in Uganda. It's a dynasty of over 500 years, and the king has a lot of authority and a lot of power. So he came and visited Mayor Ronnie, and whenever he comes, he sets up his tent, and you have to have this place around it. So this is just a month or so ago, and Mayor Ronnie wanted to make sure that I saw that. He wanted to show it to me. And there was an interesting gesture. You'll notice that he's holding my hand. Okay? Now, they don't think it the way we do here. I told them that, if two guys are walking down the street holding hands, that says that there's some sort of a special gesture about your sexual orientation, right? And he went, oh, really? That's what He says, no, in Uganda, it's a gesture of strong friendship. And I knew that in advance, or else I would have been a little less comfortable. I was a little less comfortable as it was, but I knew that it was an incredible gesture of honor. And so he takes us across from his office and wanted to show me where the king had come to visit him to work out some stuff. And what was really interesting is he wanted to make sure that he got together with me again before we left. We were going to have dinner on Saturday night, and that fell through for him. So he literally showed up at the hotel on Sunday, 2 hours before we get on our airplane. And he wanted to bring the Minister of Parliament with him to meet me. And I'm just scratching my head. It's cool and just being nice and everything. And thinking, why? Why is that? Why is this happening? And we just continue to hear back about different prophecies, how the Lord is going to position this church and the people of this church to be people of influence in governmental settings, in seats of government. And so we're just going along with it and believing what God's going to do.
It's amazing to see Pastor Pat at work too, because when they see Pastor, they see a man, and when he speaks, they get to know his heart. Because he's so humble and he leads from a place of humility with them. So after we met with the mayor, we took a pit stop over at Henry Mukisa's office, and his kids came home from school. And these two do not stand still, so this is a small miracle. They just bounce constantly going. The Alpha's on the left, and this is Esther on the right. Beautiful children, and very strong, and Esther's very sweet. And so they stood still for a half a second. I got a photo of them, and so that was kind of fun. It's very orange. All right, so after this ministry, we headed north. This is about 6.5-hour drive for us from where we were in Entebbe. And we left at 4:30 in the morning and got up there. And it's like half the drive is cool because it's paved freeway. And then the other half is like you're holding on. And I'm sitting in the back. And thank you for praying, because I didn't get motion sick at all, which I'm pretty sensitive to motion sickness. But I didn't get sick at all. I was totally fine. I actually slept through some of it. But we were driving on dirt roads, like, the back road that goes into Shiloh? And it's just like bumpy. And yeah, so that for like 2 hours to get here. It was all worth it. So we were at the Lyra's Leaders Conference. This was first day. Pastor Pat's preaching. And this was probably the first day we started really feeling the heat. And again, the wood stick-framed building, but it's covered in sheet metal. So we just literally walk into an oven.
Yeah, it was about 95 degrees.
Oh, it was so hot in there. And you just kind of go with it. Everybody's sweating, and it is what it is. And you just kind of like, all right, let's just, we're here. Let's focus on ministry. Focus on ministry. So it went really great. I got some shots of Pastor Pat preaching and teaching.
So well. I believe that was a prophetic act.
That's you.
When he linked arms with these great men. And when we all see that we are spiritually linking arms. It's not just a unity thing, like we're just gonna sway and sing songs together. It's far more powerful than just that. See, because unity requires all of us to work together, even though we're different.
I didn't know that was in there. Thanks, Pastor Pat. So there's Pastor Pat preaching, and the gentleman on the left with the amazing priestly shirt, he is a bishop, and he was kind of the main overseer of this church. And then these were some of the young ministers and others that were involved in the ministry that weekend, interpreters and some of the leaders that helped facilitate that meeting. This was an incredible time up there. It's hard to go into all the detail, and we're trying to keep this quick. But here are the leaders again, and that's kind of an exterior shot of their church, and then they kind of gather outside and have fellowship after the service. Sweet. A couple more Boda Bodas. These are fun. So there's Barrel Boda. Now, quick disclaimer, I didn't take these photos of all these ones, but we literally did see these. So I couldn't get the camera over fast enough, or we passed somebody, or it was like in the, off in the distance. So I just grabbed these photos to represent what we did see. But water jugs, they have to run for water all the time. Banana Boda, and we saw them stacked up even higher than that, to where you couldn't see the driver. Chicken, it's called the KFC Boda. There actually is a KFC Boda, because they have a KFC there in Uganda, and it has a little, you remember the rescue Boda, how it had the box? There's one that says KFC on the side. So they deliver chicken, but those were fresh. Grocery Boda, we're all hopeful that all that dairy makes it to its destination quickly. And then there is Sofa Boda. This is pretty insane. They're masters of balance. That's all I'll say. Cool. All right, so rounding up our trip and our presentation, we got one day in between. We took this 6-hour drive up to Lyra for the Leaders Conference, and it brought us really, really close to a place called Murchison Falls, where they have safaris. So we had kind of a travel day, a day off, and we got to run out and do a quick safari, which was really cool. So this is a photo of the Nile River, and in the background was Congo. Here's their national deer, or national antelope. Beautiful. Did you say something about shofars? Like their horns are used for shofars?
That's right. You can see the shofars there.
Yeah. Beautiful animals. Giraffes. These are all in the wild. We're just driving around. Buffalo with birds.
Did so well. I believe that was a prophetic act.
I think we're supposed to skip past that one.
Yeah.
He was out in the wild for sure. These beautiful elephants. And the warthog kind of on the right side.
Puma.
And then elephants and giraffes all in the same area, and they're just like traffic. It's like the elephants go by, the giraffes stop. Once they're past, the giraffes kept going. It was perfectly timed. And we saw some hippos. These things are fierce, man. They're huge. And that was in the water next to us. We're in a boat, and you don't want to go swimming. It was hot, but you just stay in the boat and kind of float on by. That thing was intense. Yeah, and there's the falls. So this is Murchison Falls over there, and there was an eagle on the way, which is pretty cool. I mean, there's just some beautiful animals that you're just not going to see every day. And this is the three amigos out in Uganda, and we quickly got back in the car after this photo.
Lion's lunch.
Yeah. So we're like confirming, like lions are asleep right now, right? No, they're sleeping right now, right? Okay. One of our last stops on that road trip is Luero. We had another leaders meeting. Popped into this church that had probably about 150 leaders there, men and women alike. A lot of female pastors in this place, which was really awesome to see, female ministers. And so this was us with Elisha in the middle, Pastor Elisha, and of course Henry. And this was a really great time of ministry. There they are again. And then this lady just had too many colors for me to not take a photo of her. She's really sweet. I think she was the usher, like the door usher. So here's Divine again. She showed up. So this was the last day at Pastor Henry's church, and she ran outside and gave me a big hug and kind of melted my heart, and then started making me feel homesick about Leilani and missing her. And so she jumped up, and I gave her a little piggyback ride into church. It was really sweet. Little miracle baby. A couple little selfies before we left town. This is the pastor Duncan, who I was mistakenly sent to his church, but it all worked out. And then the photo in the middle you already saw. And this man to the right, his name is Pastor Samuel. He's kind of Henry Mukisa's right-hand man. Great man of God. So they were really wonderful. And then we have, there's Victor again. There's me and Pastor Pat. That's us at we're jet lagging somewhere in Amsterdam. That was, we were just walking around to stay awake. It was pretty intense. And then there's our little guy Alpha again. So this is the team, kind of the very last day. They were showing us around the school. We had just finished up with ministry, and we were getting a meal and then getting ready to head out. So Pastor Jackie and Mukisa, they send their love. And that brought us home. Pastor Pat and I rallied from there, refreshed ourselves, and headed home.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you to him for doing some great pictures. Put it together, Jeribi. I'm not going to give you another 15 or 20 or 30 minutes. I just want to, I think we've got the junior church, they want to share what they accomplished today, so I want to hear that. But these events are not about Pat, they're not about Jeribi. They're about the Lord fulfilling what he promises his people. At Word Life Fellowship, we are in a season right now of unprecedented opportunity. Things are blowing up at this church right now. And I'm just excited to be a part of it at this time, at this day in this church's life. But I just want you to understand something. Opportunities are afforded those who are prepared. Opportunities are afforded to those who prepare. And the Lord has challenged us. Just about every single face I'm looking at here, you've received or you're about to receive a calling from God. There's no spectators in this team. This is a full participation church, because that's what the kingdom of God is. There's no laity and clergy. We are all ministers. We're all servants of the living God. And He has a call for each and every one of us. It's not too late. It's never too late. And I just want to encourage every single person here and everybody who's on that camera, everybody who's going to hear it on a download and a streaming. I want you to understand that God is really starting to move, and I want to encourage you. We need, every single one of us, whatever you saw here that stirred your heart, let it stir, because God is calling us to get up and start moving in what God's called us to do. Many will leave, most will not. Some are going to go to Africa or other places, most will not. But we all have a role to play. I went through a whole series of prophecies last night, prepared to speak today. I'm not going to go over them. But in my own prophecy, it says, yeah, you'll go from time to time. But your call, Pat, is to train people to go. So I just want to close this by challenging each and every one of you. Give all diligence to make your calling and election sure. It's to everybody who can hear my voice today. And I just want to finally say, let's do it. Yeah? Amen. So we have some kids? Yeah, come on, kids.